I think I'm figuring that out at the minute because I do a lot of writing in periods of heightened emotional states. Um, and so, I do a lot of writing when I'm really sad, and I do a lot of writing when I'm really happy. And so, doing writing when I just feel normal is quite hard sometimes.
Hey, what's up, Oscar? How are you?
Hello, what's happening? I'm good. I'm good.
I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new album.
Yes, yes, it is about my journey.
Love it. Well, first off, talk to me. Were you born and raised in London? Is that what I read?
Yes, I'm a Londoner born and bred, so yeah, I've lived here my whole life. I've actually just moved over to the other side of London now, which is sort of completely different. And there's so much of the city that I've still yet to see.
Oh, really? Why do you, indifferent in what way? Just
It's
completely
just
different?
completely, yeah. I mean, I was living in a very residential area before, and now, I live in East London, which is full of just all sorts of different cultures and restaurants, and I don't know, it's just a lot more exciting here than it was where I was before.
Oh, awesome. And what was it like growing up on the other side of London?
It was good. I mean, you're still part of the city, so you can get anywhere you want, really. But just to be based around that area, it was nice. It meant that I met a lot of important people that influenced my career over there. But I'm so much happier being over in East London. It just feels like, I don't know, there's something happening here and there's nothing happening over there.
I got it for sure.
Yeah.
What about music? Do you come from a creative household, musical household at all?
So I came, yeah, both of my parents were pretty musical. My dad was a drummer and used to play in a band called the House Martins, which went on to become wildly famous in the UK after he left the band,
Oh,
which we always
really?
tease him about. And then my mum used to sort of sing around the house. I think she had sort of had that sort of like young dream to be a singer, and she recorded one song, and so we've got that cassette somewhere of her song on it. But yeah, both the parents are musicians. I think it somehow wiggled its way through that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So dad was a drummer. I just looked up the band. Yeah, he's credited there on the wiki. Was he playing in the band when you were born, or not? Not anymore.
No, no, no. This
Okay,
was
way
long before
earlier.
my time. Yeah, he now
Okay.
writes for TV. But
Music for
yeah,
TV, or
no, no, no.
no,
He
just
writes
scripts and
he
stuff?
writes scripts and stuff. He went into the acting world, and that's why he left the band. And
Oh,
it pretty much, yeah, a year after he left or something, they sort of became huge.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said your mom recorded a song as well?
Yeah, I've got it somewhere. It's called Move Over. I think it's written by someone else because I ended up hearing it a few years later, recorded by somebody completely different. So I don't know if it's a cover or what the deal was, but we had this one cassette of my mum, doing a recording.
Wow. Did your dad like influence you? Did he get you into drums, or like how did you start in music?
I think, yeah, probably he did. He just was into music, so he also played a little bit of guitar. He sort of played basic E chords, and a lot of the time after school, I would go into his office and he'd whip out the guitar and we'd have a little strum along and a sing. Um, yeah, I think it kind of all slipped its way through. I have a love for ballads and old sort of piano music, and I think my dad definitely got me into that. He had this Guilty Pleasures CD that was just full of absolute hits. Um, and that kind of really influenced my music taste from an early age. I think as well, I started to learn playing drums because of my dad. Um, I don't know. I've always liked the drums and wish I was a lot better at them than I am.
Did you start off on guitar? Was that the first instrument, or did you play
I started
piano?
on piano.
Okay.
And I've kind of had the same thing with all the instruments that I play, in that I'm not so good at taking music lessons. I'm not so good at being disciplined at doing things like that. So a lot of the time I would sort of do a month of lessons, and then once I learned the basics, I'd teach myself. And at the time I didn't want to play Mozart. I just wanted to play Katy Perry or whatever was on the charts at when I was 10. So yeah, I kind of sacked off all the lessons for all the instruments I learned.
Right on. Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit about learning piano. They want you to learn the proper way to play, and then it's like reading music, and not only that, but songs you probably aren't really hip to want to learn, right? It's like, I'd rather play this. It's on the radio instead of some Beethoven song or whatever.
Yeah, I think the irony is now is that I'd rather be able to play Beethoven than something I've heard on the charts. So
Sure.
now I wish I'd done that, at the start, but I'll get there. I'll teach myself.
Yeah, because if you could play the Beethoven, it'd probably be pretty easy to learn a Katy Perry song, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, I mean, also just my music taste has changed. I'd be much more into classical music nowadays than I would be Katy Perry. Um, uh,
That's funny. What about songwriting or writing your own songs? It sounds like you didn't do the lessons because you wanted to figure it out yourself, but was it something that you were naturally good at, or like when did you start trying to write your own songs?
yeah, I think it was kind of a mixture of, when I stopped doing the lessons, then I was no longer trying to learn other songs, it was like I was just playing. And through that, you kind of write things, as you go, because you accidentally, make a little thing, you're like, oh, that sounds nice. And then I think, how kind of songwriting started for me was, I started on, when you press the button on the keyboard and then it makes a song out of whatever key you're pressing.
Oh,
Started
sure.
doing that when I was sort of like 8. And like I used to get a lot of fun out doing that. And then got hugely into YouTube and started doing covers. And then, that kind of weaved its way into songwriting. And then I started a songwriting club when I was 11 or 12.
Wow. Before the
Yeah.
songwriting club, though, would you post onto YouTube, or you were just watching people play and learning
Yeah,
that
I
way?
would post onto YouTube, but like little covers and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I still never posted the songs I wrote in that club on YouTube. I mean, I think they're somewhere out there, but please note, like, just please don't find them. They're horrific. But yeah, I think that songwriting club was the first time that I'd sat down and, written a verse, chorus, verse, chorus. They weren't great, but it's the first time I had structure to what I was doing.
Mhm. You said you started the club, or you joined it, or I mean,
No,
where did
no, I
that name?
joined it. I
Okay.
started. That's how I started writing
Oh,
music.
got it. Got it.
Was
Got it.
joining the club, and it was the first. I think my dad knew that I was quite a lot into music, and then suggested this club, and I kind of fell in love with it ever since.
He's probably pretty stoked at your success, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think he thinks he did well there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I left that band, but look at my son.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. The amount of times he used to ask me, do you need a drummer, or
Have you
you
ever
try and
brought him
slip that
up or
in.
played with him?
No, because he said
Oh,
that, and then actually, if I tried to get him to do it, I think he'd be too shy to do it. He hasn't, he's sort of got. The vibe is he's got a drum kit in the garage. It's like he has his little fun, but I don't think he's doing it properly anymore.
that's cool though. So you joined the songwriting club. Were you one of the youngest people there if you're 11, or were there other people your age?
No, because it was all designed for other kids. It was a kids songwriting class. It wasn't like a
Oh.
proper like a course or anything. It was like a little after school club. And I think most of the kids that were going there were sort of going there because they liked music and
Mhm.
wrote a little song. But there was something about it for me that I connected with and was like, oh, I could do a lot more of this.
Mhm.
And then just kind of continued. I did that club for quite a few years, sort of on and off. I think my only thing again with that is it limited me because they would often give us briefs. They'd go, "Oh, I want you to write a song in a country style,"
Okay.
So I kind of stopped it in the end because again, it was kind of limiting what I was doing. I don't necessarily want to do what everyone tells me to do all the time. And
Sure.
when somebody tells me to write a country song, then I just really don't want to write a country song.
Uh-huh.
So, and it's the same with when somebody tells me to play Mozart, I don't want to do it. So
Right.
that's why I kind of left that and then just kept doing it at home.
Okay. And you had, well, the first few albums, at least on your Spotify, you originally put out under a different name, right? And then you switched your project.
Hmm.
So with that first, you know, the first couple albums that you did or releases that you did, were you playing around London, or like how did that kind of come about, and how old were you at that point?
I think it was just a series of very lucky events that happened. Um, I I was in secondary school and had been doing music, doing little YouTube covers again for years, writing little songs here and there. And then I think at 17, I sort of went, right, I want to start like an artist project, and started Pig, which was my, my former name.
Mhm.
And then it was just like actually trying to write songs and then release them. And I somehow got caught up in this wave of, I was really lucky in that there's a company out there called Lander who do mastering things.
Mhm.
Um, and they just sent an email out being like, we've just released a streaming service upload feature. And it was one of the first sort of websites to enable an average person to do that. Before, it was like, in order to get on Spotify, you needed a label, you couldn't do it
Yeah.
yourself.
Or like SoundCloud even? It was before that?
It wasn't before SoundCloud. SoundCloud was kicking about. I
Okay.
posted songs on SoundCloud, but there's a level of like, you want to be on Spotify because that's where
Right.
everyone listens
Okay,
to
I see what
music.
you're saying.
Because SoundCloud was like, oh, you've got to go find them on SoundCloud. It's just
Sure.
kind of different thing.
Okay.
And so yeah, got this email and it started releasing, and weirdly got caught in this wave of things. So we were I was one of the sort of few artists that just started self-releasing at the start of when that was happening. And I was very lucky in that through mutual friends, I met B, who now goes as Beaver Doobie.
Mhm.
Um, and we started working on music together because she was sort of like, I've got these little songs that I like. And I was like, well, I know how to press record, so come round to mine. And then, I ended up humming on the tracks. And then, a couple of tracks later, I had some piano, and then somehow wished up into, kind of producing and releasing her songs. So we kind of got caught in this little wave of self-release artists. And I said to B, I was like, well, I've got this thing that you can release songs through, and I pay a yearly fee for it. So if you want to release your songs through that, I'll do it. And so I was there when we sort of went, oh, what do you want your name to be? And she went, why don't we go Beaver Doobie? And it was like, oh, okay, that's kooky. And then,
That's
so I just
crazy.
really lucky, really, that I got, through mutual friends, stumbled into B, who's a fantastic songwriter. And she literally was just, a girl and an acoustic guitar. And she's made her most popular song from that, that session we did, that first one we did together.
Yeah, because you produced that, right? I mean, you both worked together on Coffee.
Yeah. So
Wow, that's wild.
that was one of the first few times we met. And it was I'd heard her play the song somehow, I think on an Instagram live or something. And she came around. I was like, oh, you should record that song you did from the Instagram thing. And that was Coffee. And that
Wow.
was one of the first times we met, and took 45 minutes. I added some humming at the end, and then we got a hit.
Well, you have quite a few hits. I mean, even if you go all the way down to like, She Likes Another Boy, that song nearly has 100 million on Spotify alone. I mean, so you were also releasing songs, like you were producing with her and then releasing your own songs kind of simultaneously?
Yeah, that's how I got in contact with B, because B had actually found my music through a mutual friend, and had liked it, and so messaged me and was like, oh, no way, you go to this. We sort of went to brother and sister schools. We both went to these Catholic schools, and she went to the girls one and I went to the boys one.
Hmm.
And so we sort of knew each other through that. And it was, yeah, she'd heard my music and liked it, and then messaged me. And that's crazy, because She Likes Another Boy was the first song I ever released on Spotify. And it came from that email, where it came through and said, oh, we can release. I'm like, oh, I've got this song that I've just finished, I'll put it out on Spotify. And then had this other little spare song that I whacked as a B-side. And weirdly enough, that's also now kind of big, which is bizarre for me, because that was such a little like, oh, I'll do a little B-side because I think they were like, oh, you can do a single, so you have two songs. So I was like, oh, I'll throw this one on.
Wow.
Um, yeah,
That's
amazing.
wild. Yeah.
That one email changed my whole life, to be honest.
Sure. I mean, once you're getting all these streams, I mean, to now see not, nearly 100 million. But even just in the beginning of it really taking off like that, like, is that how Dirty Hit came out to you? Or like, were you like, how did, from those streams and from that experience, were you getting shows around town, or were you even out playing it? Or was it really just something you were recording and releasing?
I've always primarily been more of a recording artist than a live artist. I try now play as live as much as possible, but it's almost a struggle because I haven't really built up that live sort of presence, because most of what I do exists entirely in the online world.
Mhm.
Um, I was sort of getting live shows through mates. I had a few mates that played in a band, and we supported them a few times. I think I was, again, super lucky in that I was part of this first wave of self-releases. So weirdly, there wasn't that much in the self-release market to sort of overcrowd it. So I remember one of the songs I self-released off my first album I did, called Snacks, got added to a Spotify playlist, and that must have literally just been somebody found the song. And I sort of went on, and it jumped from 3K to 30K, and I literally sort of jumped for joy. I remember like jumping around my room and going, no way, it's been added to a playlist, it's go, this is like, now it can really go.
Which is
Yeah, I just got
huge, right?
super
Especially
lucky.
for self-releasing. I mean, usually the Spotify I mean, nowadays, right, the Spotify playlists are pretty limited to the biggest artists on the country or whatever it may be, or a newer band signed to a major label, or however it goes. So to get on there, I mean, that's a massive achievement.
Yeah, it was crazy. I still don't really know how it happened. I've been really thankful in my life and grateful for, I think, the online community in music, because a lot of my success is because of them. A lot of the success of my tracks has been because people have reposted them, or those channels, where they sort of post a song they like a day. I remember one called David Dean Burkhart, which was very like sort of famous in the indie scene for posting, different songs that he liked, all the time. And that was one that sort of sailed, and it's all sort of come from reposting. And I remember initially seeing these posts and being like, well, what's the deal with this? Do I take it down? Because they're all it's all my songs, and it's all on these people's channels. And, this feels weird that they get to upload my song. But yeah, I think I knew sort of that not to disturb it really, because that's actually the best kind of marketing, is that, mouth to mouth over the internet, and just spreading naturally. And that's how She Likes Another Boy and some of my Million Little Reasons track have blown up, is because they were posted on these sort of editorial YouTubes.
Wow. Yeah, it is interesting how just like you just said, spreading the word through other people that have, somebody else might have a platform and they're like, oh, wow, like Oscar Lang's song is awesome. I'm going to put it up. And then other channels pull it and you're like, maybe they uploaded it, but still, and people are going to come back and know who you are. Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just had to remember that it's like, that it's almost free advertising. It's
Mhm.
hard to, it's advertising for the channel, and it's advertising for the artist. I mean, I think it's mutually beneficial. I don't know why anyone would, go after taking people down for that. Um, but it was really amazing to see. I think there was a Million Little Reasons with Spanish subtitles video that I had no idea existed, and then went on one day and saw that it had 6 million views, and there was like 10,000 YouTube comments, all in Spanish. Devastating, because I love to read the comments. I love to, like, I don't see what people are saying, and I couldn't read a single one of them. But yeah, amazing that can happen.
Wow. And then from like those experiences, like I know you've gotten on like BBC One, which is massive, and all those things. Like, what did those come while you're still independent artists, or like, and when did you decide to do the name change?
No, those came with that's kind of the stuff that really comes with label.
Mhm.
That's why you sort of take it to a label, because you kind of want to go, oh, I want to be more serious with this now. Um, I want to be on radio and stuff like that. The name change came, it was involuntary. I didn't want to change my name. I still miss that name quite a lot. But unfortunately, there was another pig out there, and he had been kicking about since like the 90s. And so,
Ah,
we had to give up the name. Annoyingly, I think it was literally the day after I signed my record contract was when we got the message from them saying, we've got to change it. So yeah.
probably right. They just get this alert, like, oh, this person signed to
Yeah,
this label now. Like, you could pay me for the name, or like,
yeah,
take
I
it
think
down.
they realized that like it was starting to become a little bit bigger, and it was, getting in the way. And I mean, I don't know what the rules are with that. I don't know if we could have taken the name or not, because who owns the name Pig?
Right.
Um,
Exactly. That's what I
but
was thinking.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I didn't particularly mind because there's weirdly a lot of pigs out there. There's a band called Pigs Times Seven, Pigs, and there's Big Pig, and there's a
Pig
lot of
Destroyer, I
different.
think, is another band.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff out there. So I thought I'd go with my name and, you know,
Solid
Teeming.
choice. Yeah. And what was it like signing then to a label? A big accomplishment, I would think.
Yeah, it was like it was sort of surreal. It all kind of happened so fast. I had worked with B on her EP Patched Up, and then she had told me, she was like sort of, oh, I think they're thinking of signing you, and sort of all sort of happened so fast, and suddenly I was signed and a recording artist. I think it's been amazing. I'm very fortunate that my label, it's an independent label, and they allow me to do whatever I want as long as I hand in the music at the end of the day, which is, I feel very fortunate to have that relationship, because a lot of labels aren't like that and like to stick their hands in it and, control the music, and dirty hits sort of go, as long as you produce these songs at the end of the day, we'll support you, and, give me money to make cool things happen, which is great.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, the people on that label are, you have the 1975, so many incredible artists that you share that label with, which I'm
Yeah.
sure
I
is
mean, it
amazing.
still surprises me. Like they just keep signing really great acts, and I can't believe that like I'm part of this roster of really, really fantastic artists.
So with the album you just released, what, 2 months ago, I believe, just a few months
Mhm.
ago. Tell me about that album and writing it, and I think there's kind of a pretty heavy storyline behind it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this album was kind of a necessity for me to write. I I had finished my last album and was kind of unhappy about it. Um, I had done 3 EPs and an album in
Mhm.
1 year, and by the time the album came around, I sort of didn't even know what music, like noise, sounded like anymore. I'm still really incredibly proud of those songs, but I just got to the end and felt like I could do more. Um, and so
Wow, you did
started
all
writing
those
this.
in one. When was that, during like the COVID thing? The
That
COVID
was
lockdown.
that was
Okay.
2020. So I
S-
did, yeah.
Did you
How
just have a
many
lot of
songs?
time to write or inspired? I mean, that's a lot of music.
It was a lot of music. Yeah. I mean, it was like, what else are we gonna do? It was hard because I had just signed this record deal and released an EP and was ready to play shows.
Mhm.
And that was, my final thing. Yeah, I got a label, and we're gonna go play loads of shows, and we did a tour, and it was exciting. And then boom, no live scene for 2 years. So it was like the only thing I can really do is record music. So that's why I did so much of it. But when you do that much and you have the year like that, you just sort of, I don't know. By the time I got to the end of it, I was like, I know I can do something better.
Mhm.
Um, and so started writing this album, and it started in a very weird disco space. And I think I kind of needed to go through some sort of, thing. And I went through a breakup, and it was a breakup of like sort of childhood love, and my first relationship, and been together for 3.5 years, and it was the only thing I'd known. And that broke, we broke up, and I was sort of plunged into, I don't know, just I didn't know what was going on.
Mhm.
And so every time I felt incredibly low, I gravitated towards making this album, and making this album was hugely therapeutic for me. I mean, I think some people have slightly misread it as a breakup album, which it's not. It's got breakup songs, but really, I think it's an album about growing up, and I think something like that really matures you. And
Mhm.
there's lots of themes, things I've dealt with on this album. Talking about my mum, who I lost it when I was 7,
Mhm.
um, and just kind of coming to terms with being an adult.
That must have been I mean, obviously a really difficult song to write. The one
Hmm.
about your mom. Was this the first time you tried to take on that subject?
No, it wasn't. I've written multiple songs about my mum over the years, um, and none of them seemed right. I don't know. I've never been a fan of a pity, or you know, I hated in school when I told people my mum died, and then they go like, oh, so sorry, like, you know, and like, or if somebody made like a yo mama joke, and then they'd be like,
Mm.
oh, and get all like awkward about it. And I think I always kind of disliked that pity. So in the songs I tried to write, I didn't want to write, they want to write some song that was all like, I miss my mom, you know, and it just really
Mhm.
like, a lot of the songs I was writing, I was like, yeah, I just want to hug, or this, like that. And these songs that were very personal. And then I kind of, what I just came up with this idea of, you know, talking about it from the angle of religion, which my mum's family was hugely religious. And, you know, talking about how I don't believe in God, but I I wish there was one, because that means we all get to go see our, you know, dead pets, dead relatives at the end of our life, and we get to have a big happy time in the sky, which sounds great to me. But yeah, so it's kind of, it's all about. I thought it was just an interesting angle to come at it from, and I think it's one that people can relate to,
Mhm.
and anybody that's lost someone, you know, feels that, and you sort of hold out on a God just so that you can see that person there.
Sure. Yeah, and I feel like, yeah, well, there's kind of probably 2 ways to think about it in the sense of like, I love what you did with the song and the idea behind it. It's like you could lose somebody, and then if you're deeply religious, you could either be like, oh, well, you know, there isn't a God if you would take my mom or whatever, or you know, it's okay because I'm gonna see them. But to not, and you went through Catholic school, it sounds like, so like you probably have this sense of it all, and then it's like, but it's still like, I hope this is the case, right? I mean,
I mean, it
it,
was just sort of, it was weird because you're just getting so many conflicting opinions.
mhm.
And I went to Catholic school all my life, and sort of in my heart didn't really believe a lot of it. But at the same time, you've got your mum's family telling you you're going to see your mum again, and all of this stuff. So yeah, hugely conflicted. And they also, you know, when you go to Catholic school, you sit in a lot of masses, and I spent a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
I grew up
time
Catholic too.
thinking, yeah, yeah. You spend a lot of time thinking because you're just so bored of, you know, what's happening on up there. So I think, you know, I spent so much time thinking about that, and I'm so glad that I managed to get it down in a song.
Amazing. And when you wrote that, did you know like, okay, this is the one I'm gonna release, is, you know, kind of for her, or, you know, about her, so to speak? Like, was that finally the one that you had written? You're like, okay, this is the one I'm gonna put out, because it sounds like you had done that before, but you just didn't do anything with
Yeah, I think there was just a feeling that it was like, okay, this is right, and this is the right tone to it. And you know, anything, I just sort of would cringe, thinking that people would be like, oh, it's too soppy and whatever. So it just felt right. I don't know. There was a deeper gut feeling. That's something I've learned to try and trust a lot more, is this deeper intuition, gut feeling.
it. With the new album, you've put out a handful of music videos, and from what I was reading, I believe did you direct the last one you did?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What was that like, kind of stepping into that role?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I've wanted to direct music videos for so long. I think part of the way I listen to music, and have always listened to music, a lot of the times I'm listening to a song and I'll visualize an entire music video in my mind. I don't know if anybody else does this, but sometimes you imagine yourself in a music video, or you imagine some idea of a music video. And I'm just constantly, you know, uh, seeing these music videos, and I never really quite had the confidence to, you know, direct my own one. But for this album, I saw this music video so clearly in my head that I sort of went, I'm tired of trying to explain it to other people. I'm just actually gonna, you know, direct it myself. So it was an incredible, yeah, incredible process to be a part of, and I'm really thankful as well to the team that helped me, because obviously I was a first time director, so I didn't know everything.
Sure.
And every, you know, the crew were really, really, really helpful, and guided me through the process. But yeah, I'm hoping to do more of it. I'm really excited about it.
Did you have like when you wrote the song, did you said you kind of have the video in mind when you write? I don't know if it's all your songs, but some of them. Were you able to put that, like, was this one of those situations, and were you able to put that to life? Like, were you thinking about the video
Yeah,
beforehand? If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
My
yeah, yeah. I
question.
think I think all of the music videos for this album I had visualized before, uh, before we had filmed them, and one that was amazing was we did a music video for the lead single called Song About Me, which I had envisioned exactly that in my mind when I was listening to the song. If you watch the music video, I had seen exactly that. It was the platforms, and it was like an old 70s thing. And it was just surreal to watch it back and actually just arrive on the set on the day and see something that I had seen in my head and on a large, huge scale set, and it's real and tangible. It was very surreal. But I think most of the music video process for me comes after the songs are finished, and it's that process of I sat on this album for 6 months and mixed it and mastered it and listened to it so many times. And it's in that process that I start to see, videos.
Oh wow. Is that something you usually do, or is this new to not the music videos, obviously, but like taking that much time with the album or with
Oh,
your
we took
project?
we took a lot longer. It was very new for me to take a long time working on a project because, as I said, we did 3 EPs album 1 year, which
Right.
is insane.
Yeah.
Um, so I was very used to sort of going boom, 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 next thing, next thing, next thing. And this was a slow process. I think we wrote 50 or 60 songs and whittled them down to 10 because I just wanted them to be, the greatest, the best ones we had written out of that 60. And that's what I missed from my previous album, is that for that album, we wrote every song and every song made it onto the album. It was like, we write a song, goes on the album, write a song, goes on the album. This was, let's write all these songs and then decide.
Interesting. So you have 50 songs that are just kind of hanging out on a hard drive or something.
Yeah, yeah. But I think a lot of people that are musicians and producers, a lot of them will say that 90% of the stuff they make never sees the light of day. So yeah, I'd say 98% of what I make never sees the light of day. This is a small fragment of what I make.
Sure. Wow. So that must be a pretty difficult process, though, to sit down and listen and weed out that many and be like, okay, this is gonna, these 10 are gonna make the album, and then because I came from radio and I did radio for a lot of years and programmed radio stations. So I love the process of just putting the songs in order, right? I'm sure that takes
Oh
a
yeah.
while. That's like one of my I would think that would be a kind of a cool experiment or process. Like, how are these songs gonna go each other? How are we gonna tell the story? What's the through line?
Yeah, it's all part of the process. I think one thing you have to be very careful of is not exhausting your ears, and I've done that
Mm.
in the past. You can listen to a song so many times where you just don't know what it sounds like anymore. It's just completely lost all, like, it's just noise when it reaches a certain point. Um, so yeah, I mean that process is just it's super long. I think that the hardest thing was definitely whittling down the songs. I think the initial cut we did from 60 was I cut from sort of 50 or 60 down to 15, and then slowly they dropped one by one as I went. I don't think this is the best it can be, I don't think this is, so we've still got all of these songs that I don't know if I'll ever do anything with them one day, but who knows, we'll see.
Awesome. And you just did I mean, speaking of live shows earlier, you just did a big headlining tour.
Hmm.
What was
It
that
was,
like?
yeah, it was really fun because again, I've become kind of disconnected with doing live stuff. We get to do it so rarely, and I love doing it so much that it had been a while since we played shows, and we've got a whole new setup, and I'm playing piano, which I love doing, and I've never done that before on stage, and it really made me fall back in love with it, and I'd sort of forgotten about that, and I love doing it so much. And whether it was 30 people in Manchester or like 1,000 at Green Man Festival, both of those situations, I just absolutely love doing it. So we're hoping to do as much as possible because it's my favorite thing to do in the world.
Amazing. And the amount that you write, I mean, are you constantly doing it? Like, do you probably have 60 more songs that you're tinkering with right now, or did you kind of put a pause on that with the tour and trying to pick through the record and all of that?
I think it's like I kind of write when I think I'm figuring that out at the minute because I do a lot of writing in periods of heightened emotional states. Um, And so, you know, I do a lot of writing when I'm really sad, and I do a lot of writing when I'm really happy. And so, you know, doing writing when I just feel normal is quite hard sometimes. So I just have to accept that, you know, these things come in ebb and flows and waves. And there's been months where I feel like I'm on fire and I'm just making so much cool stuff, and I just feel great. And then there's months where I'm not making anything, and every time I touch my fingers to a piano, I just can't get anything good. So I just accept that it's going to come in waves, and I just have to remember that every time I'm in a wave, that somebody else out there is having a bad wave, and that means that every time I'm in a bad wave, somebody else out there is having a good one. And you know, chance that it's going to come back around. So at the minute I'm in a little lull, but we're gearing up to start recording the next stuff. So I'm very excited to get back in the studio because I miss it so much.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Oscar, for doing this. I have one more quick question for you before I let you go. I want to know, well, you kind of just gave some great advice, but I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, I do. I think it took a long time for me to really trust my gut instinct. And there's something, an indescribable feeling that you know what's right sometimes. And to trust that so much, because you know, before this album, I went into the label and laid out every single music video and every plan and what every single single was going to be and what the album cover was going to look like, because I didn't want a chance that anybody else, you know, could put their fingers into it, because I knew exactly what I wanted. And that's what I'm saying, is that don't be afraid to be a bit of a diva sometimes, because there's nothing, you know, you just know in your gut what's right.